This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. So, in the last session, we discussed about the if condition, how it is going to work. So, we have a simple example with the different ways we identified how it is going to work. Like, so today we are going to discuss about the switch cases here. So, basically, switch case is a alternative to this particular if cases here. So, how we are trying to use if with else if here. Same way, inside this particular switch cases, we are going to come up with a multi-branch here. So multi-branch is nothing but, so we'll define the expression and later we'll come with the multiple case statements here. So we'll see the syntax first, later we'll come up with a simple example how this particular switch case is going to work. Okay, so let's have a simple example. So before going to discuss about the example, I will use the one more class here. So here I'm trying to create this particular switch case here. So switch expression I'm defining and the main method I'm enabling this here. And now, so once we enable this, now this is the particular main method. And after this, so we're going to write with this particular switch case here. Now observe carefully. So how we are writing it. So this is the key. Key is nothing but here we can come up with the expression. So based on this particular expression, now what happens here? It's going to check with the value. Whatever the case value we are going to define, it will identify the particular case here. So how many cases we can write? So as many we are interested, we can come up with the particular cases here. Okay, but here, whatever the expression we are writing, the expression should match with this particular value here. So now, right now, only one case we are defining, and here we can come up with the one more case here. Now, if you see, this is the value 1 and this is the value 2. Getting the point. Same way, we can come up with the multiple case statements. If any one of this particular case is not satisfied, what happens internally? It will go to the default one. So, however, we are writing this particular else here. So, if any one of this particular if and else if statement is not going to satisfy, what happens internally? It will come up with this particular else here. And the same way, so here we are having this particular default here. What happened this particular default? If any one of this particular case is not going to satisfy, it will come to this particular break, sorry, default one, it will execute. And why we need to use this particular break here? So we'll see a simple example without this particular break. Now what happens here? Okay, so let's have a simple example on this. So syntaxes we identified here. Now we'll try to understand the simple example here. So how exactly the simple example we are going to write here. Now I'm removing this. So I'm going to use this particular loop here. So inside this particular loop, I'm trying to define with this particular int I is equals to 0 and I less than. I'm trying to make as a 6 here. This is the condition I'm trying to use. And after this, I'm using the iteration. And later, now what I'm doing is I'm come up with a switch here. So what exactly I'm going to use? The expression I'm using as a I. And here, if you observe carefully, so what are all the I values we are going to get? The I values, how many times it's going to repeat here? Up to 5, 0 to 5 times here. 0 to 5 times this particular loop is repeating here. So once this particular loop is repeating, now what I'm doing internally, so I'm going to make this particular expression of I. So what exactly the I will contain here? The I will contain the index integer values. So it's nothing but 0 to 5. Okay, and here I'm making case here 0 case, and what I will do, I'm going to write this particular simple statement here. So not only this particular simple statement, you can write any any one of the API calls here. So for example, so here I'm trying to satisfy this particular case. Instead of printing this, now in the real application, what we will do, we'll try to come up with a different endpoints here. So endpoints is nothing but, for example, the case we are going to call with update here. Okay, or so you can identify delete here, or you can come up with a insert, or you can come up with a something like checkout. Getting the point? And so another one, we can come up with the order. Getting the point? So these are all the cases. So how I'm defining zero, same way we can come up with these many different cases. Getting the point? These cases we can come up with the enum, or we can come up with the strings here. So for example, this expression I'm defining as a string here. This expression I'm defining as a string. So if this particular string is matched with this particular update, now what we will do internally? So basically, update is nothing but we are going to load the existing record and we'll update some fields here based on our requirement here. So what we will do, instead of printing this line number 9 as a println statement here, first we'll call the one database request here, because we need to load the some data. Based on this particular ID, we'll load the data, and we'll try to update, and again we'll save the records here. We'll save this particular records here. So this is the first case. So what is the case name here? This is the update here, and we'll come up with the one more case, delete here. So what we will do, we'll try to delete the record from the database, and one more case, we'll try to insert the new record into the database here. So now you can see if it is any e-commerce application, so now you can identify, so any checkout related or any order related endpoints we are going to create here. Getting the point? So these are all the five cases we are going to write here. So how we are defining it? Just we are defining here zero. Why I'm defining this zero? Because we come up with the one integer loop here. But in the real time, we are not going to use this loop here. So just for understanding, I'm explaining. But now you can see in the real time scenarios, we may identify. So these are all the different cases here. Getting the point? So this case is where we are going to write. We'll define inside the method. Whenever we are calling, we'll try to come up with a parameter with a different parameter: update, insert, checkout, order, or check balance, update balance. So transaction list. Getting the point? So we are having so many cases we can define here. Getting the point? So if you check with any banking application, we may get a lot of cases here. Okay, so each case we are going to come up with a different purposes here. Okay, so this is the simple example I want to provide how we are going to use in the real time scenarios here. I now understand here. If it is a zero case, now what I'm doing here, just I'm printing the message. I is zero, and now I'm using break statement here. Okay, so this is the case zero and case one. So this is the different case I'm trying to write here. And now I is 1. And here I'm using break here. So case 2 in the point. And here case is break. So case 3. And here I is 3. So break. Case 4. And here I is 4. So now inside this particular default, what I will do inside this particular default here, so I'm going to come up with a 5 related. So here I will write I is greater than 4. I is greater than 4. Now observe how many cases we are defining. So this switch we define only one, but cases we come up with a multiple here. Cases we come up with a multiple. Same imagine here, instead of defining 0, 1, 2, 3, now what we can do, we can come up with a different case information and write the statement. So how we are writing the line number 9, not only the single line, we can come up with multiple lines. How many lines we want to execute, we can write here. Okay, so but only the thing here, the different cases we need to write, and we should end up with this particular break here. Okay, so without adding this particular break, what happens here, we'll understand here. But here, so in the real-time scenarios, how we are going to come up with the example with this particular case here. So basically, we'll write the different cases, and in the each case, we'll try to connect with the different endpoints here. So you can write one case to connect with the ICICI Bank. You can write one case to connect with the HDFC. You can write one case to connect with our something like different banks here, SBI Bank something. Getting the point. So this is also applicable here. But how we are going to identify, the case will define, or we can come up with the expression. If you write the expression as SBI, so the SBI related case will execute here. SBI related case will execute here. Okay. So now understand here the simple example how it is going to work. Now you can see how many times this particular cases are executing. Each case is executing only one time. Each case is executing one time. So this is very important here. So first one 0, second one 1, third one 2 or 3, 4, something like. The fifth one is executing greater than 4. So why are defining? Because just we need to understand the default one. If any one of this particular case is not satisfied, any one of this particular case is not satisfied, it will move on to this particular default here. So I come up with only 4, up to 4, and the fifth one we are executing inside this particular default here, inside this particular default. So this is very important, we need to understand here. Okay, so another one what we can understand here, if I remove this particular, if I remove this particular break here, getting the point. So you need to understand this. So how exactly without this particular break will work. I'm removing this particular break here. Now understand here how it is going to work. So compare the outputs here. So see these many outputs here right now. Observe carefully. So earlier we did not get these many outputs here. So how many records we got earlier? So around 5 records here. Around 6 records, sorry. Around 6 records we got. So 0 to 5. Okay. But right now you can see 6. So now you can think here how many records we are getting here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the first iteration, and so 0 is first only it is printing, and from the second onwards it is coming with the 1, and again it is moving on to the default section. And now you can see, so this another record is starting with the 2 and is ending with the greater than 4, and another record is starting with the 3 and is ending with the 4 here. Okay, so now you can see the fourth record is starting with the 4 and ending with the greater than 4 here. Okay, but what we understand here, so if I'm trying to remove this particular break statement here, what happening here? So even though this particular case is satisfied, it's trying to execute the below statements here. It's trying to execute the below statements here. So this is we need to understand here. Getting the point. This is we need to understand very carefully how this particular case is going to satisfy. Getting the point. Even though the appropriate case is satisfied, but is trying to execute the below cases. So let's have the same example with debug mode here, so that we'll get to know how these particular cases are executing internally. Now you can see what is the I value. So the variable section you can see I value 0. So if the I value 0, what basically it needs to satisfy? So it needs to satisfy this particular case only. So it cannot execute the below statements here. So now you can see, now it's moving on to the case 1. Now it is moving on to the case 2. Now it is moving on to the case 3 and 4. Finally, defaults also. Now it is repeating the value. Okay. So this is we understand here. So right now the case value 1. So again, it will not going to check this particular case 0. It will not going to check with this particular case 0. It will try to look up the case 1. Now you can see directly the case 1 is executing, case 2, case 3, 4, and default 1. Now if you see I value 2. So from directly the line number 15 will execute. not this particular case 1 and case 0. So now you can see line number 15 is executing here. Okay, so initially starting is fine, but after the case execution is trying to execute the below statements here. Is trying to execute the below statements here. So this is this is not we are expecting here. So because even though if the appropriate case is not satisfied, we are giving the option to execute here. So now observe carefully. Now what I will do, I'm trying to enable this particular break statements here. So I'm trying to enable this particular break statement here. Now observe carefully. Now observe carefully what happened in this particular case. So what is the case value we are having? 0. The I value we are getting as a 0. Now observe carefully. I value satisfied here. It is break here. Now moving into the next iteration. Getting the point? It is moving into the next iteration. So this is very important here. Okay. So now observe carefully. Case value 1. Now it is satisfying only this particular line number 12 and executing the break and coming back to the for loop here. So now the value will increase here. So the value will become 2. It will try to move on to the case number 2. Line number 15 will execute. 16 is executing and coming back here. Okay. I value 3. So 18 will execute here. So break. Getting the point. So now observe carefully how much this particular break statement is playing an important role here in our case statements here. So this is very important here. If you are not adding this particular break here, what happening internally, even though the appropriate case is not satisfied here, it's trying to execute the below case statements here. Getting the point? This is very important here, right? So this is very important. We need to understand here. This is very important. We need to understand here. So any questions regarding this particular case statements here?
For case 1, 2, and 3, so the 1, 2, and 3, they denote the value of I, right? Case 0 means case I equals to 0.
Yes, so
So
basically these cases will internally will going to work on this expression like I. So inside the switch cases, whatever we are going to write, the value it's need to satisfied with this particular case.
Okay.
So for example, if I'm trying to come up with a string here,
So do you
string,
think it will work if we write case 5
it
or
will work here.
case 6?
So 6 also will work, but the problem here,
Mm-hmm.
so what happens internally, the value we don't have. So for example, I come up with the 5 and so here I'm trying to modify it with the 6 here. Okay, so these many the cases we define. So we'll keep as it is this particular default here. But observe whenever I'm trying to run the same example with the debug mode. So what is the I value right now? 0. Again, it will go for this particular case. So basically, this is important here. Here, whatever the expression is having, what is the data type we are having, and this particular value it's going to identify with each case here. So which case is going to satisfy, so directly the particular case related example is going to execute here. Right now if you see I value 0, it's not waiting the line number 9, so directly it is coming to the line number 10 and 11 here. Getting the point? So this is the relation between we are having switch with this particular case here. So the I based on this particular expression, I like whatever the value we are having inside this particular switch case. So directly the case appropriate case will execute here. So the it will not check with line by line. So which case is satisfying this particular value? Like how we identified this particular if. So first it will check this, and later it will check this, and later it will check this. But in the case, it's the different here. So whatever the value we are having, this switch will decide it which case we need to execute here. So directly it will move on to the appropriate cases. So for example, so now you can see line number 9 is not executing. So 10 and 11 executing. So I value 1, so 2 and 3, 4, and now observe 5 is executing. Okay. After 5, so this particular loop will come out of the outer. Basically 0 to 5 will become 6 here. So whenever the I value will become 6 here, this condition will fail. This condition will fail. So once it is failed, so we are not coming into this particular switch cases here. So we are coming out of this particular loop here. We are coming out of this particular. Now observe carefully. So we are coming out of this particular for loop here. So even though if you write this particular case 6, no use here. But this will use only if you modify some condition here. Okay. So is it clear? Any doubts?
It's clear, sir. Thank you. And then the default statement is also not printing.
See, basically the default statement will print here because up to the whatever the condition we added, the
Mhm.
all the cases are satisfied here. If any one of the case is not satisfied, then only it will go to this particular default here.
Okay.
Because so 0 to 5, we come up with the 0 to 5 cases. So that's the reason I did not added this 5. So if the case is not available, it will move on to this particular default here.
Okay. Only if it's not available, then default is printing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And
Yeah,
here,
sir.
yes, tell me.
So, no, please carry on. It's okay.
Okay. So I'm trying to explain the one more example here. If still anyone having here current example, you can ask.
Yeah, here I have it. So when you wrote the default and when we are printing the default statement, and so you wrote the it's I values greater than 4. So
Okay.
do we need to write the? Are we comparing the I value with the last case?
Yes. Earlier example, we don't have these two. Okay, up to
Yes.
4 we define.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the value we are getting, more than 4 only.
Okay.
Correct. If you see 0 to 4 we are handling here.
Mm-hmm.
More than 4 we are not handling here. So if the value is coming more than 4, we are moving into this particular default section.
Okay. And then if we write in the if condition, if we write I value is less than equal to 6, then can the case number 6 will execute?
Yes, it will execute.
Okay.
So either you can do equal.
Mm-hmm.
So it will execute this. No problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So for
So
understanding,
one more question, sir. So
yeah.
can we write the case value like in a B, C, or either we have to write like 0, 1, 2, 3?
So that is it's going to decided by this expression, the switch expression. Basically here, if you write the integer data type, we can come up with like this. And if you come up with a character, you can add a character. For example, so instead of writing this I, now what I will do, so here I'm coming with a character. So here I need to write ch here. But you can see, so ch internet is not giving. But what we can do here, you need to come up with like. So this is the way we need to define the cases here. Because we are defining ch. Ch is the what type here? Char.
Okay.
Okay, so the case also it needs to satisfy the same data type here.
And
And
if
you
we
can
write
come up with
string
no,
A, then
no, that one is the difference. So for example, here this is treated as a string. Now you can understand here what is the error? Can mismatch cannot convert from string to char.
mhm.
So here we can see the error. It's showing that we cannot convert from string to char here. But what is the data type this switch case is expecting? Char. But we are providing string here. So basically, based on this particular switch case here, whatever the data type we are using, the same data type we need to define to the all the cases here.
Okay. So for integer, we have to define first 0, like array 0, 1, 2, 3,
No, no,
4.
not only zero, you can come up with any value.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Just I'm defining the order here. You can come up with the
Mhm.
here. You can define the zero. You can come up with a 5 here. You can come up with a 4 here.
So it's depend. I think it's depending on the I value, like I equal to 0. According to that,
Yes.
we are okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So any other questions? Okay. Now observe. So this we are going to use the same loop here. And now what I'm doing here, I'm going to use the same switch case here. But here I'm going to modify this all the statements. And observe carefully. Case 0, case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. So here what I'm trying to write here for all the cases. So these are all the I is less than 5. Okay. So this is will print how many times will print this I is less than 5. So based on the expression how many times the cases are satisfying here, the this particular case 4 will execute. Okay. And now from the I, like from the case 5, what I will do, I will try to come up with a greater than here. Case 7, case 8, and case 9. Here what I will do, I is less than 10. So one more break. Okay. And so default I'm trying to write. So this particular default what I will print here, greater than I is 10 or more. Now, so first to see the output here, how it is going to print this. First to see this particular how output here, how it is printing here. And now understand here. So how many times this particular 5 is printing? I less than 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times this I value, the less than I value is printing. So why this println statement is executing 5 times here? Basically, first here for each case, we are not come up with a break statement as well as some println statement here. Even though if the case is 0, what happening internally? We are moving into the case 1, case 2, case 3, and case 4. So wherever we are having the break, we are stopping here. Getting the point? So wherever we are having the break statement, so there we are stopping this particular case here. So otherwise, it will keep on executing until this particular case 9 also. Getting the point? But what we need to understand here, even first iteration the case value 0, but still it is executing this println statement. Even the case value 1, the println statement is executing here. Okay, because of the first we for each case we don't have a println statement, and one more we don't have a break statements here. Getting the point? So this is we need to understand very carefully. So what we need to understand, where we are having this particular break. Getting the point? So wherever we are having the break, so it will going to stop the appropriate the break statement until the cases are going to satisfied here. Okay. And another one now you can see. So this is also less than 10 here. This particular statement, how many times it is printing? So now you can see 5 times. This particular statement also it's printing 5 times here. Getting the point? So from here, case 5, case 6, case 7, case 8, and case 9. Up to the case 9, these are all the cases 5 we are having. For each case, this particular println statement will execute. So it will not come to this particular default section here. And finally, once the case value is more than 9, it's trying to print this particular 11, 10, 9 to 11 here. Okay. So Okay, so observe carefully. So this break statement, this particular break statement is going to work very important role whenever we are trying to write this particular cases here. Getting the point? So this is the one more example I want to show you. Even though the cases are not satisfying here, but it's trying to execute this particular println statement here. Getting the point? So to understand more here, let me run the same example with the debug mode. Now observe I value 0. So if the I value 0, basically this particular case it needs to satisfy. But what happening internally, it will move on to the this particular case 4 here. So it is stopping here. Now you can see now case 1 here. Even though case 1 it is executing the case 4. Even though the particular case 3 it is executing. And even though this is the case 4 is executing the line number 39 to 14. So now observe, so directly it will move on to the line number 20. So observe here the case value, what is the case value we are having? 5. Even though if it is a 5, still it is executing. So what we are doing is, for the couple of cases, you can write 1 or 2 or 3, any cases, so it is trying to execute here. Basically, this is one of the multiple if conditions. So yesterday, what we did here, you can see, we are coming with the month 12 or month 1 or month 2. Same way, now what we are doing is, even if the case is 5 or case 6 or 7, 8 and 9, in this particular, any one of the case value is 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. Now what we are doing is, we are trying to execute this particular statements here. Getting the point? So this is the common statement we are defining. For this particular common statement is going to execute. So based on this particular case value satisfied. So even any one of this particular case value satisfied, it will execute this. So this is will give you the more understanding here. Okay, it's like a multiple conditions how we are using. So same way here we are going to use multiple case statements with a common execution code here. If you see the same println statement is printing for multiple times here. How many times it is printing? So how many times we are satisfying with the different case values here? So in our case, it is going to satisfy 5 times here. 5 times it's satisfying here. Okay. So this is the one more example I want to show you. So any questions regarding this particular? So multiple case statements with a common println statement here.
So, sir, compiler is coming on the case number 0. If it's satisfied, it's going on number 1. If it is satisfied, going on number 2. Is it like this, or like the all have the same result? Then that's why we are printing the 4 number, case number 4.
So if you observe, for these 3 cases, even month value 12 or month value 1 or month value 2, what we are doing is, we are initializing this particular winter,
Yes.
right? Same way if you see, so even this particular case value 0 or 1 or 2, 3, 4, any case is satisfied.
Okay.
Here we are not checking all the cases, just we check the any case. So for example, first iteration it will satisfy 0. So it's not going to check this particular remaining cases. It will try to print this particular message here. Getting the point? So basically, this is the common code we are defining, and this common code is going to satisfy with this particular cases here. So if you observe, just imagine, so this is the insertion. Okay, now you can think here, this is the update here, and this is for delete, and this is for load data, and this is for something like, so this is also delete, but here based on id, sorry, based on id the record will delete. Now observe, so these are all the different operations we are having. So first case will insert, second case will update, delete and load, again will it will delete the based on id. But here what is the code we are going to write here? Because these are all the operations we are going to work on the same database. Getting the point? We are going to work on the same database here. So here we try to write the database related information. So what are the required informations, like the connection related information, where exactly the database is available, and what is the username password. So everything we are going to write here, and only what we will do internally based on this particular case value. If it is 0, we'll insert the record into the database. If it is 1, we'll update the record. But what is the code is common? The database relate connection related code is common. Only what is the specific one? The insertion, updation, deletion is the specific one. Okay, so this is also one important here. For this is the purpose we can write the common code here, and we can perform the specific operations here. Getting the point? So this is also important here. Just line number 13, you can imagine the line number 13 we are writing the common code to connect with the database related, and in the line number, so here we'll check the case here. If the case is 0, we'll insert the data into the database. If the case is 1, we'll update the data. Getting the point? So this is the way also we can write here. So here we don't have much code to explain here. Just I'm trying to write the common example. Even though the particular case is not satisfying, how we can come up with the same code for different cases here. The same code is executing for the different cases here. So this is we can explain here. Okay. So still any questions? Okay, so to understand more clear, what I will do, I will come up with the same if statement. So whatever this particular example we discuss here, the same example I'm going to write here. So you'll get to understand here how we can come up with the same example. Okay, so now understand here the into month again I'm trying to take 4, and the string season I'm trying to define here. So just I will declare here, and here, so now observe here what I'm doing here. I'm defining month here. Getting the point? I'm trying to define the month here. So what are all the first we are having? If you see, first I'm checking 12, 1 and 2. So 12, 1 and 2. So 12, 1 and 2. Okay, so these are all the 3 cases. And here what I will do, and so what is the value we provided here? Something like I will copy this entire one, break. Okay, so it's completed. Now you can see, so after 2, so this is the 3, 4, 5. Okay, so these are all the different conditions. So if where we define, so this is we define 3, 4, 5, and now you can see I'm copying this, and case 6 here, 7 and 8. For this particular 6, 7, 8, it is a something like summer, and case 9, case 10, 11. Right. So here this is the particular season we are having, and I'm pasting here and a break. So if any one of this case is not satisfied, what we will do, we'll move on to the default here. So what we define in the else section. Okay, so this is we define, and after this, now what we will do, we'll print this particular season. Getting the point? So just we'll print this particular season here. So now you can see, so the same if conditions how we are defining here. Getting the point. This is important here. How many cases we come up with here? Three cases we define, because the condition we come up with a multiple, like three conditions here. The same three conditions here we define as a cases here. So if any one of the case is satisfied, either 12 or 1 or 2, any one of the cases satisfied, we are initializing this particular season as a winter. In the earlier example also, now you can see here any one of the cases satisfied, we are executing this particular common code here. Okay, so is it clear? Still anyone having any doubts?
So, sir, it's not like compiler is not certified on case number 12, case number 1, case number 2. So it will print winter.
Yes, if we modify this particular value, something like 12.
Okay, then
So
it
if
will
we,
print. Otherwise, it will print only spring because it's the compiler certified here.
yes, whatever the month we are having here, this is
Okay.
I explained. So basically, whatever we are writing under this switch case, sorry, this is the switch expression here. Based on this particular value, it will identify the case. So what value we are providing here, this is important here.
Also, one more question, like yesterday you teach us for that another case, if else, and we give you gave the same example. Here you gave today's switch. So in real time scenario, like can we write in any like switch or if else, or like they will give us to write switch or if.
Basically, this switch cases most of the time we are going to use, as I explained just now, when we are trying to communicate with the different endpoints or different data we are going to modify here. So, for example, the example what I trying to explain. So, if it is any frequency, so for example, we have a some notification we want to send. The notification we are going to send based on the frequency, like daily we can send in a notification, or we can send in a weekly, or we can send in a like monthly or yearly something. So we are having different frequencies here. So those frequencies we are going to write as a cases here. So now you can see the first 12. This case we can come up with a daily, or we can come up with a weekly or monthly and yearly. Okay, so in the daily, what are all the notification we are going to send, the particular code we are going to write. Getting the point. In the weekly, so what exactly we are going to write, we are going to define the inside the weekly case. So these are all the most important scenarios. So this is the one example in the real time, and another one as I explained here. So when we are trying to communicate with the different API calls, so as I explained, we can communicate with the different banks. So for example, when we are trying to, if it is an e-commerce website, whenever we are trying to send in a checkout, now what happening internally, it will move on to the different applications here. From the e-commerce application, we'll connect it to the one more application here. How it is connecting it based on the bank detail what you provided here. So that kind of applications also we can define using this particular switch cases. Getting the point. So you are going to write your credit card information or debit card information or any banking related information. If you provide here, what happens internally? So it will come up with the appropriate case is going to satisfy, appropriate case is going to satisfy, and it will connect with the different applications here. So this is also one way to write here. In if the case 12, if I'm trying to come up with the HDFC, okay, if I'm trying to come up with this, now what happens here? So it will connect to this particular HDFC application, and here we are going to check with the username information, password information, and whether he's having the balance or not. Getting the point. So all the information is going to check, and it will make the payment here. So same way, you can come up with the HDFC, something like SBI, or you can come up with the ICICI. Getting the point. Or you can come up with the different bankings here. Getting the point. So we may come with the different approaches. We can come up with this particular switch and cases related. But if conditions, most of the time, we'll check the conditions here, whether the condition is satisfied or not. For example, the person, so yesterday we discussed the person having member or not, or the person so can contain the dependence or or the person can have a address or not. So these are all the information we can check using the if conditions. Okay, so even though we can write the- okay, so any questions still? Okay, so let's have a one more example with a different data type here. Now what I will do, I will create a one more class here. Okay, here what I'm doing here, string I'm defining particular switch here. So the key, what I will do, str I will define. So if it is a str, now what is the case we can write here, because case is expecting string value. So now you can write here something like 1. What happening? Okay, now observe what I'm doing here. I'm trying to come up with different cases here. So observe carefully the case I'm defining with the string data type here. This is the 1. And now what I will do, so simple understanding I'm going to write with this out here. I'm printing 1. And one more. So you may come up with different cases here. These are all the different cases I'm trying to write. This is the 3 and 4. And finally, inside this particular default here, I will come up with no match. Okay. And now you can modify the println statement values. Observe carefully how we are doing it. So this particular switch expression, what we are writing here, something like str. Str is a variable and is having the data type called string here, and the cases I'm trying to define with the same here. So now you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 I'm trying to define it. And what is the value we are having this particular str? 2. So which statement is going to execute? The line number 11 here. Now if I'm going to run example, you will see, so 2. Only 2 is printing. Why 2 is printing? Because we come up with str value as a 2. Str value as a true. So otherwise, what we can do here, we can come up with the command line argument and we can provide the dynamic input here. So based on that, it will execute here. Okay, so instead of providing the static value, so we have another approach here, so that we already identified in the earlier example. Okay, so any questions here? Now observe 1. Earlier we come up with the 2, now I modified to this particular one, so this case is satisfying here. Okay, so this is the different data type we can use inside this particular switch and case related example. So if not, what I will do, I will try to use this particular nested switch case here. So how we can come up with this particular nested switch case? This is important here. Okay, so to write this particular nested switch cases here, observe carefully how I'm trying to come up with this particular nested part here. So here, this is the outer STR I'm trying to write here, and this is the one case. Inside this particular case one, if it is satisfied, now what I'm doing here, I'm not printing this statement here. I'm not printing this particular statement here. I'm coming with one more switch here. Getting the point? I'm trying to come in with this particular switch here. So this is, we'll call it as a target here. And inside this particular target, now what I'm doing is, again, I'm going to come up with those same cases. So if you see the target, I'm going to write with the int here, or we can come up with a arrow. Okay, so the target I'm defining here, and now you can see here we can observe with a case A, out here, a value and break. Case here, something like B I will print, B value and break here. And finally, I will come up with a D here. Okay, now if you observe carefully, this part we'll call it as a nested switch cases. Getting the point? Nested switch cases we are defining. So this is the outer switch case and this is the nested switch case. But when it is going to satisfy, the nested switch case only will satisfy, like it's going to execute when this particular case value 1, when this particular case value 1. If the case value other than this particular 1, so it will not execute this. So this is important here. Okay, now if I'm going to run this example, what happens internally? So D value we are getting and 2 and 2 we are printing. So why we are printing this particular 2 here? Hmm. Case is, here we come up with okay, let me save. It's save only. Let me debug this example. The output we expected different, but it's printing different here. So str1 target D, and now you can see the switch case is executing here. Now observe D value is printing. Once it is printing the D value, okay, sorry. So we missed the break statement here. Getting the point? We missed the break statement here. So inside this particular case one, so we don't have a break here. Getting the point? So because of this, now what happening internally? The second, the case two is executing here. Case two is executing here. So this is important here. Let me run this. Only one value will print here. Only one value is printing. That is called D value. Okay. So this is, we'll call it as a, this is, we'll call it as a nested loop here. No, sorry, nested switch cases here. So any questions here? Anyone having any question?
So, sir, here in case one, we are defining the uh, care, the case A, B, D.
Yes.
They are coming in the case one.
Yes, this is the nested switch case we are defining under this particular case.
Under this particular case. Okay. Okay, sir. Got it.
Okay, and tomorrow we'll continue with the iteration statements here. So how we can come up with the while loop and do while loop, and as well as whatever we discussed about the for loop, and we'll try to understand the for each related example here. So once these particular loops are completed here, we'll move on to the like break statement we already identified. We'll come up with the one more keyword called continue. We'll discuss about the continue statements, and we'll have a simple example on the nested loops here. So once it is these are all the completed, we'll move on to the object creations related example. Okay, so if we don't have anything, so we'll stop the session here. We'll continue tomorrow.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.